Have you ever wondered when the white players started to play these anti-martial lines to avoid the theoretical battles in the main line of the Ruy Lopez? Well, I found a very beautiful game from 2006, and back then the only 19-year-old Ivan Cheparinov was facing the seasoned grandmaster Sideline. And what we are going to see is a brilliant game by white, and the position next to me is from that game. As you can see, white improved the position a lot, and now the question is what white should do. Now it is your turn. What would you play in this position? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's go to the game. Ivan Cheparinov, playing the white pieces, plays first e4, and Sideline-Almasi, playing the black pieces, responds with e5. Then we see a Ruy Lopez, and now the question is which kind of Ruy Lopez black will choose. a6, still we don't know which kind of Ruy Lopez variation we are going to see. Bishop to a7, and now knight to f6. White castles, bishop to e7, rook to e1, so the looks like the main line so far. b5, bishop b3, black castles, and now h3, an anti-martial move. Usually, as mentioned in other videos, white very often goes c3, but then there is this d5 gambit line, which is called the martial gambit. And it's a very healthy gambit, because after e takes d5, knight takes d5, knight takes e5, knight takes e5, rook takes e5, white has won a pawn, but black will gain a lot of counterplay. In this very moment, this knight is hanging, so usually black defends it. And now a move like d4 might be played, then bishop to d6, rook to e1, and queen to h4, and the queen is already very active, putting pressure on white's king. And these positions are considered equal, but are very sharp. So usually, or in the most recent years, we can say that black is eager to play this line and white wants to avoid it. So very often we don't see the c3 move, but a move like h3, because now there's simply no reason for d5. d5, then pawn takes d5, knight takes d5, knight takes e5, and the structure is a little bit different. And here the compensation might not be enough. So let's go back. In the game, bishop to b7 was played, d3, d6, and now pawn to a3. And if you are following this channel, you might remember that we took a look at a game of Cheparinov, which started very similarly. So in the end of this video, I'm going to add it so you can click on it and watch it. And I would really suggest you to watch it because it's very instructive. And in the game, their knight to b8 was played by Ivan Sokolov. And in this game, Sideline-Almasi plays queen to d7. A very strange looking move. Well, if you aren't familiar with the Ruy Lopez, it might be a very logical move because it connects the rook. But usually the knight goes to a5 or b8 or the rook to e8. These are the so-called normal moves. But let's see what the idea of queen to d7 is. Well, it connects the rooks, and black wants to play rook a e8 and then try to push the d pawn, because in all variations this e5 pawn might be a little bit weak. This rook and this knight are putting pressure on this pawn, so d5 isn't possible yet. But let's see what happens in the game. Knight b to d2, rook a e8, preparing the d5 push, and of course the rook just moved away from the a file, so the very logical thing for white to do is to play a4. And of course black really doesn't want to open up the a file, so black first plays knight to a5, bishop to a2, and now b4. Now the a file remains closed. And in a previous game, a year earlier in 2005, Karyakin played knight f1 against Aronian, but then the players came to the conclusion that this move might be not ambitious enough. So Cheparinov had prepared a better move here, or at least slightly more interesting, c3, opening up the queen side. So b takes c3, b takes c3, and now black plays c5. Now white has two plans, and he must choose one. A move like knight to f1, which is a standard maneuver in the Ruy Lopez, would be very fine. Then might follow bishop to c6, putting pressure against this pawn, but you might see f7 is also there. So knight to g3 cannot be answered by bishop takes a4 due to moves like bishop takes f7 check, rook takes f7, queen takes a4, and then the queen side exchanged, and now this knight is just hanging. The knight has to be defended because otherwise the pawn falls on a6. Black is in a horrible situation after only 20 moves. So for example, bishop to d8, bishop g5, and the position is really hopeless. h6, then let's just take rook takes, rook b1, and this position doesn't look very promising for black. Actually, black is completely lost here. So black really needs to watch out what he is doing in these lines after knight to g3. However, in the game, not this plan with knight to f1 was played, but knight to c4. And this looks very interesting, but not very logically. Because in this position, this knight cannot be considered a strong piece at all. But there is a very good logic behind knight c4. White is getting ready to play on the queen side. Moves like rook to b1 are going to come, and there is not much which black can do against this. So let's see what happens in the game. Knight to c4, bishop takes c4. So the a pawn is attacked but also defended. So nothing special happened yet. But black must already watch out what he is doing. A logical move like rook to b8 might be met with the very strong bishop to g5. And the bishop here has two good squares, e3 and g5. And therefore, black just plays h6. Almasi plays h6 and says this bishop on c1 does not get to play or be put on g5. White shouldn't be allowed to do this because otherwise he will do and black will in a bad position. So black gives white time and white sees a space on the queen side with a5. And later on this move will be very important because bishop to e3 will come and at some point the d4 break is in the air. Bishop to d8. Black is trying to get some space to move the pieces and also put pressure on a5. Now bishop to e3, and it is hard to say what black should play here. Well, a move like bishop to c7 might be good, but the coordination is still not very fine for black and white might be a little bit better. However, in the game, Almasi played king to h7, and here followed queen to b3, and now we can see that the pieces are coming to the queen side, and black has a very difficult time because now even this bishop move cannot be played, because then this bishop on b7 is just hanging. So this is not possible. But let's go back to the game. Bishop to c8. Black sees that the bishop is an issue and puts it on c8, a very passive square. But what else should he do? Knight to d2, and now queen to b7. Now white wants to fight and gain over the b file. So rook e to b1, rook e7. Of course, black wants to keep the file under control, but here white found the very strong queen to c2. Now black is forced to move away the queen, so queen to e8. And in the beginning you were asked which move you would play in this position. And white has improved the position very much. White gains a huge advantage. The question is how to keep the advantage, because all the pieces seem to be on good squares. What should white play here? And the solution is a very active move. It's d4. And after c takes d4, of course, white just takes back with the pawn. And rook to b7 was played. Here the task of white is pretty easy. He takes on b7, and queen takes b7, and now follows bishop to d3. But let's go back for one moment and see what white had in mind after bishop takes b7. Well, then d5 had been a very strong move. White has more space. White has the better coordinated pieces. And white is probably winning on that level. I can assume that Cheparinov would convert this. But in the game, queen takes b7 was played, and still a move like d5 had been also very good, but bishop d3 was played, protecting the e4 pawn. Now black grabs the chance and tries to open the position a little bit with e takes d4, bishop takes d4, but white has a very dangerous threat here, and this is a discovery check. So this pawn wants to march forward. Of course, black must do something, king to g8, and now we see a familiar move here, knight to c4. The knight will go or goes to a very strong square. Queen to c6. So what else? Black is very passive, and it's not clear what he should do. So at least black is trying to exchange the queens. Knight to b6. White doesn't mind the exchange of queens. Queen takes c2, bishop takes c2, and now white is in a very good position. Bishop to b7, hitting the e-pawn, but of course Cheparinov had seen this much earlier, I assume, and had planned the very solid f3 move here. Now this bishop is not strong here, it's hitting pawns, and this bishop here is just on the back rank. A horrible position for black. Rook to e8 played, rook to b1. Rook e7, black is trying to activate the pieces, but here again the knight goes back to c4, and now the d6 pawn is under attack, so black must do something about it, and black plays rook to c7, bishop to b3. Of course, the bishop has to move away before this pawn is taken, because otherwise rook takes c2, rook takes b7 is a nice position, but the advantage here is probably not as big as in the game. So therefore, bishop to b3 was played, then followed bishop to e7. Black has issues with the coordination. Knight to e3. The knight is heading to even better squares. Bishop to c8. Bishop c4. Making sure that the bishop is forced to defend the a6 pawn. Knight to d7, and now rook to c1. This is a little trap. White is threatening to take on f7 because this rook is not protected at all. Bishop to d8, and now white found a very strong move. Knight to d7, d5, rook c6, and now knight e7 check. And here black decided to resign, and Almasi ended the game by resignation, by giving up, because after bishop takes e7, there is bishop takes f7 check, king takes f7, and now you might think black gained 2 pieces for the rook, 2 minor pieces, but this is not the entire truth, because after moving the bishop to b7, the only square where it is not taken immediately, or the only possible square, then comes just rook c7, a double attack, and all the pieces of black are on the 7th rank, and the rook is attacking them, so white is completely winning. So therefore, resignation after the 40th move, knight to e7 check, was very reasonable. As always, I hope you like this game. If you enjoyed it, feel free to hit the like button. If you want to see more of such content, feel free to subscribe. And now let's go to another Ruy Lopez game of Cheparinov, but with a slightly different result. See you in the next video.